I'm Victoria Pearson, but you can call me V. It is an absolutely beautiful day outside. You can't see because it's too sunny, but the trees are all in bloom. It looks like it's snowing out there because of all the blossom that's in the air. It's really, really windy and cold though. I was going to take you out today, but I've decided it's too cold. I'm going to stay at home, but I'll take you thrifting or something next week. A few of you have asked me recently about my day job, and it's been a very, very busy week in my day job this week. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about it, how I got into being a virtual assistant, what that actually involves, what I do with my day, and how I manage my time. So let's grab a cuppa quickly, and we'll sit down and have a chat about it. And the eagle-eyed amongst you will realise that I've got a new kettle. It's actually a second-hand kettle from my mother-in-law because my kettle died, and I'm very salty about this because it was a cute little blue one that went with my microwave, and now I've got a boring standard kettle. That's better. Right, it's very early for me still. It was half term last week. I got used to lying in. It feels very early for me this morning. And that is one of the great things about being a virtual assistant actually, is because I do have children. I've got teenagers, I've got a grown-up child as well, and I've also got one that's 9. And the 9-year-old still very much needs my input during school holidays. I mean, the teenagers do as well, but not quite as much. They're a bit more happy to go and disappear into their teen caves and sit online and talk to their friends and things like that. Whereas the 9-year-old still needs a little bit more input than that, yeah. And so I needed a job that would fit around school holidays and school pickup times and children being ill and things like that, while still giving me a little bit of an income. I was complaining to my friend, Barefoot Backpacker. If you don't know them already, go and find them on YouTube because I helped them launch their YouTube channel and I helped them with editing their YouTube shorts, and they go to all sorts of interesting places. I have learned so much about various different places that I wouldn't have known if I wasn't working with them. And it's well worth having a look at their videos and seeing some of those destinations, as well as seeing them talking about things like local history and identity as well, because they are an asexual, non-binary travel podcaster with purple hair who doesn't wear shoes. There's lots of interesting different niches that they cover on their channel. It's well worth a look. So have a look at the Barefoot Backpacker. I have been friends with the Barefoot Backpacker now for longer than I would care to admit, because then that shows how old I am. Probably about 15 years, I should think. And I was complaining to them a couple of years ago about how I was probably going to have to get a job as a dinner lady again. Now, I've worked as a dinner lady before. I do really, really enjoy that job, but there's only so many hours you can do as a dinner lady. There's only so much money you can make, but it was looking like I would have to. And I love dinner ladying, but I don't love that it cuts the middle of your day out. Like, you can't go out in the morning because you've got work at lunchtime, but there isn't enough time to do anything in the afternoon because you've got to be back for school run. And so, although it is a lovely little job being a dinner lady, and I really enjoyed spending time with the children, and I really, really enjoyed hearing their conversations. I once overheard 2 5-year-olds discussing whether Jesus Christ was the same person as Father Christmas, and how they could be the same person because they can both see when you're being naughty, but they might just be brothers because they do both have beards. And that's the sort of conversation that you don't hear anywhere outside of primary school, really. But I did several years as a dinner lady, and I didn't really want to go back to it. It felt like a backward step to me. But I was saying to my friend that I could really do with the extra couple of £100 a month just to keep our family afloat. And that's when my friend said, well, I'm actually looking for an assistant, and I have been for quite a while. I want to build my brand, but I don't really have the time to be fiddling about with video editing or approaching brands, and I don't really like filling out forms and cold emailing people. I was going to say cold calling, but we don't really do that. And so we spoke about what sort of thing that they would need, and they agreed to pay me to edit their YouTube shorts, follow up on appointments for them, help them with admin things, that sort of thing. And there are actually a lot of people out there who really struggle with admin things like filling in forms or remembering appointments or making the appointments in the first place. And those are all the sorts of people that could actually really do with a personal assistant, but maybe don't have space for a physical in their house personal assistant. Maybe they don't need somebody full time. That's where virtual assistants come in really, really useful. So for me personally, I do for the Barefoot Backpacker, I do a flat rate and I do a set amount of hours each week, and they have me on a fairly permanent basis. But there are other clients that I take on who maybe just need help with one particular task, or just need help for, say, 6 months while they find some different brands to collaborate with, things like that, that take up too much time in their day, but they can't really move forward in their brand building without. Now, I seem to have accidentally specialised in travel vloggers, which is really weird because I don't even have a passport myself, but I do find it fascinating learning about all these different places and all the different places that my clients go to. And I think that that can actually be quite helpful for them as travel vloggers, to have somebody who doesn't travel be asking them questions like, well, what do you pack for that sort of trip? Or what is it like being visibly queer when you're visiting a Muslim country? Or how do you get medical help if you don't speak the language? And those are the sorts of questions that they can then answer for their blogs and their vlogs and things like that, to target people like me who like the idea of travel but haven't actually done it yet. I didn't quite mean to specialise in travel vlogging. It's just the way it worked, because I don't advertise my services, I suppose, unless you count videos like this. I rely on word of mouth. So after I had established myself with Barefoot Backpacker for a while, we got into a rhythm, and I must have been doing a good job for them, because whenever they would go to travel conferences and things like that, they would be talking about how useful they find my help. And as a result of that, I've then got several other leads to chase up, and other people that might want my help as a virtual assistant. And for some of those, that would be purely diary management. For some of them, it will be, can you contact brands for me because I'm a little bit too shy to. For some of them, they'll ask me for video editing. And if you start up as a virtual assistant, when you've got your first client, who's sort of like your tester client, you will find as you go along that you develop skills that you didn't expect to. I didn't think when I was going to be a virtual assistant that I would become really, really good at video editing. I don't know about really, really good, but I'm getting there. I've got a load of video editing skills that I wouldn't have had otherwise. I've also now managed to develop my own templates for approaching brands that I can personalise really easily to a particular client, because they're all in a similar sort of field. I've also found that for some reason I have picked up a lot of neurodivergent clients. Maybe it is just to do with how my brain works. It fits quite well with how their brains work, but it's something that I have developed just accidentally by working with lots of neurodivergent people. I've actually found that neurodivergent people tend to struggle more with the form filling and things like that, but have loads and loads of creative ideas. And I really, really love being able to help people take their creative ideas and make them into a real product, a real thing, a real video, a real blog post, whatever. It's finished, it's done, they've completed it, they've got that sense of achievement from completing it, and they're able to really let their creativity shine in a way that they wouldn't be able to if their brain was too bogged down with all the details like the SEO of it, and how am I going to market this, and what should I title it, and all that sort of thing, that I can just smooth over, take over and do that for them. Then their creative ideas get to really come to fruition. I love to see that. It's one of my favourite aspects of the job, seeing people go from idea stage to a realised and complete project that they're proud of. It's so, so good. One of the other things that I really, really love about the job is the amount of variety in it. Any given day, I could be doing any number of different things. I could be editing a blog post for somebody who English isn't their first language and wants to make sure that their translation works. I could be editing shorts for YouTube. I could be editing long form videos for YouTube. I could be taking control of somebody's email inbox and just sorting it all out so they can see what they're doing. I could be booking an appointments or contacting legal people or contacting brands, and I never quite know what I'm going to be doing until just a few days before I do it. Now, for some people, they might find that really, really frustrating, but for me, I really like that. I like to be able to chop and change between a boring task and a creative task. I like to be able to break up my phone calls with a little bit of creative work, a little bit of editing, something like that. And so I really love the variety of it. I recognise that that isn't for everybody. Similarly, this job isn't for everybody if you are bad at managing your own time. I have to be really, really strict with myself. And working from home with no sort of boss over your shoulder going, where's that report? It's quite difficult to get yourself started and get yourself going and keep yourself motivated to do things. So in order to do that, I utilize several techniques. One of them is, I think I saw it on Mel Robbins. I don't know if she invented it, but I've seen it in one of her shorts where when you're procrastinating and you can feel yourself procrastinating and you're struggling to start, you just go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. And then you move and you do the thing. I like to do my hardest parts of work first, get them out of the way with, so that my working week starts off quite full on and tails off towards the weekend. I feel like that sort of gets my brain in the right groove to then fully relax at the weekend. Because another problem with working from home, especially if you're working from your phone, especially if you're working for people that are your friends as well, is that mission creep sets in and you can find yourself at midnight doing some work, or at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning doing some work just because it's there and you feel you should. It's really, really important, whatever you're doing in terms of working from home, but especially if you're your own boss and you're managing your own time, to make sure that you do manage in some downtime for yourself as well. Because if you are a burnt out mess, you can't help any of your clients at all. You're not organized enough to be organizing other people if you can't organize rest into your schedule. It's really very important to stop yourself getting burnt out. And so holding those boundaries firm is important, and it's something that I used to struggle with a lot when I was younger. I've got a lot better at it now. I think if I'd been being a virtual assistant in my 20s, I would have got burnt out very, very quickly, because I would have struggled to say to clients, no, Saturdays are for my family. Whereas nowadays, I feel a lot more confident to be able to say that, and I set that expectation at the outset. When I'm first speaking to a potential new client, we have a chat about what our expectations are, what our needs are, what we're both expecting from each other, and to make it very clear at that point that my family comes first, that weekends are for them, that I will sometimes take time off in the summer, but I will make sure that content is scheduled for them, things like that, so that they know right from the beginning what the expectations from me are and what I will be bringing to the table. It's really important to have that conversation, and if possible, get it down in writing so that you both know where you stand, so that they're not disappointed with your output, you're not feeling put upon and overworked. There are lots of different ways to do that. One of them would be, if you're working for a friend or something like that, get a separate chat that's for your work stuff, mute it when you're not at work, because then they can just send things to your work chat that you can deal with during your working hours and that you don't need to worry about right now. There are lots and lots of different free tools available for virtual assistants to use. Trello, Asana, ClickUp, CapCut, Canva, all of these things are free at the basics, and then you can, after you've used them for a while, decide what you need to buy the pro version of. If you just go out and buy all pro versions of all the software that you think you might need, you will find that you don't use half of it, and then you're paying out good money for nothing. So if you are planning on trying to set yourself up as a virtual assistant, get familiar with free tools for doing things like Canva, like CapCut, Trello for your communication, things like that. There are other things available. Those are just some of the ones that I use, but there are others available that I'm sure is just as good. And get used to using the free versions of them. Do that for about 6 months. Find out what the weaknesses of the free versions are before you decide if you're going to upgrade to pro, because you don't want to be buying a whole host of pro suites and then you get a new client and they say, oh, I don't want to use any of those, I've got this that I'm used to. As a virtual assistant, it's your job to make your client's life easier. So you need to be able to adapt and use what they are already used to using. And so being adaptable is a really key skill for being a virtual assistant. Other key skills for being a virtual assistant include good grammar, spelling, attention to detail, being able to make sure that that piece is perfect before it gets sent out. It won't always be. There will be times when something gets a bit messed up. If you've got a decent client, they won't mind. If you're a decent assistant, you will take that experience and learn from it for the next time, rather than get bogged down in it and end up sort of giving yourself imposter syndrome to the point where you can't work anymore. That is also another danger, if you've got a brain like mine. Really, all you actually need to get started as a virtual assistant is a decent phone. I do most of my work from my phone, even though I do have a laptop, and I do use the laptop for some things. I just find it easier to use my phone. I find them quicker to get started, more likely to carry on with it. Yes, I might get a bit distracted, but if I'm getting distracted by a notification on my phone while I'm on my laptop, then I have to move away from my laptop to my phone. My attention shifts to my phone. I will look at that notification and then I might well start looking at other things. If I'm already working from my phone, I can look at that notification and go, huh, and then carry on with what I'm doing a lot more easily. So from a personal perspective, I find working from a phone a lot easier. You probably do need some kind of computer if you're going into video editing. I don't think it matters if it's a desktop or a laptop, but it will be easier for you than tablets or phones. That being said, I'm editing this video on my phone, I'm recording this video on my phone, and a phone is perfectly adequate to be able to do the job. I don't think that you should spend an awful lot of money on equipment if you're being a virtual assistant, because your contracts will come and go. You will have times when you don't have many clients, and so you don't want to be spending out lots and lots of money during those times, but also because you really don't need an awful lot to get started. And so if you establish yourself a little bit first, then you can work out what equipment that you need to make it better. Don't be sitting there thinking, oh, I want to be a virtual assistant, but I can't because X, Y, and Z. If you've got a phone that can watch this video on, you can do that. And your quality of your work won't be any different to somebody that's doing it on a laptop if you're doing it properly. So that was how I became a virtual assistant. That's a little bit of what I do. Managing my time is always a challenge, but I'm working on it. I decided to talk about this today mostly because I have 3 or 4 new leads for new clients, and I'm looking at how I manage my time at the moment and thinking I'm going to have to swap and change some things around to be able to fit all my hours in and still make videos for you guys and still write my stories for my Patreon and keep working on my book. And maybe I need a virtual assistant actually. Maybe one day I'll learn enough to get one. Join me next Monday for my next vlog. I think we are going out thrifting, but don't hold me to that. I'm not entirely sure. It will depend how cold, windy and horrible it is outside. I really don't like the wind, you know. It gives me the sensory heebie-jeebies being touched by something that I can't see, and I just don't like it at all. And so I tend to hide inside when it's very, very windy. I would rather get rained on. But I will be here next week, vlogging about something. In the meantime, if you can't wait to see me again, I do understand. I will be here every single morning in your shorts, taking a great big deep breath, letting you know what I'm grateful for, sometimes letting you know what's challenging me that day. This morning, waking up was a challenge for me today. I will also be here on a Witchy Wednesday doing an intuitive card reading for you. And I might have a couple of bits and bobs to show you that are extras for that throughout the week as well. Until then, you have yourself a magical week.